And it looks like we're live.
All right. Well, hello, Mesa Public Schools. This is Andy Forlis. I am the very proud superintendent of Mesa Public Schools. And today we are going to be talking about remote learning and especially how remote learning is impacting our youngest learners. And joining me today is Mr. Josh Henderson. Mr. Henderson is the very proud principal at Lincoln Elementary. He's been there for 5 years. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Mr. Henderson so you can kind of understand who he is outside of being a principal. He is a graduate of Mesa Public Schools. He's also a father of two children in Mesa Public Schools who are working in a remote environment, and his wife is a teacher who is teaching in a remote environment. So he has a very large spectrum of understanding of what this looks like. I also want to begin our time today by saying thank you. Thank you to the community. Thank you to our parents. I know that for many, remote learning has not been optimal. It's been frustrating. It has been tedious, and I have received hundreds of emails that remote learning is not working. I've received emails that remote learning has been the best thing for families. So I understand that we're not all together in how we feel about this right now. And so we wanted to make sure that this was the topic of our Facebook Live session because we want to be able to provide some solutions, some ideas, and some hope. I also want to start off our time today before we get into questions by telling you that remote learning is a temporary solution. It is a temporary solution for those who would like for it to be temporary. It's also a permanent solution for those families that believe that remote learning is the very best choice for their children and their family. So please know that when we make our transition into that modified in-person model, we will continue to offer remote learning for any family that chooses it. So let's get back to our subject of today. So while we are in remote learning, and again, we believe this to be for a short amount of time, that while we're in remote learning, there are some questions that have continued to come up. And so I would ask you, please enter in your questions into the chat and we will respond to them as quickly as we can. We've got about 30 minutes dedicated to have a great conversation with you. If for some reason your friends, you're in this Facebook Live and you think, oh my gosh, I wish my neighbor, I wish my friends, I wish my colleague, I wish my husband or my wife was here to see this. These are all recorded and we add these to our website under our Safe, Strong, Ready plan to open up schools. So let's get started. Mr. Henderson, are you ready? Two thumbs
I am
up.
ready. Two
You
thumbs
are
up.
ready.
Let's do this.
Let's
Yes,
do
ma'am.
it. Okay. So the first question that we have is, how can you ensure that children stay focused on their remote learning?
Dr. Forlis, that's such a great question. And I truly appreciate the welcome and also the connection to being a principal, a dad, and also supporting our teachers, our families, our community. And so that's a really good question. It's one that is so important for our young learners. I know that our schools are working so hard, our teachers are working so hard to have engaging activities for our students. But as our students, especially our young learners, the ones who, I mean, school is new to them. They're just seeing this technology. They're seeing their teacher through a screen as opposed to face to face. I think it's just so important for us to do all that we can to really just make sure that our kids are engaged during those times that the teachers are there and that we really have important things for them to engage in. But then whenever they have chances for breaks, give them a chance to take a deep breath, let them go walk around, let them play in the backyard a little bit when it's not 112, obviously, but give them a chance to enjoy some of that part of being a kid, those breaks, to be able to not be stuck on the screen at all times. But whenever they are in front of the screen, let's be really intentional with that time. Let's make sure that time that our kids are right there, engaging with their classmates, engaging with their teachers. Let's make sure that they are really can stay focused, removing some of the distractions that might be around them, removing some of the things that might keep them from really connecting with their classmates and their teachers and the learning that's going on. So I know it's a huge task as a dad. I see it every day with my young learners. And so it's something that I know that it's really just really important as families that we make that time and make that intentional piece to that when they are engaged, they're engaged, and whenever they get a chance for a break, enjoy that downtime as well.
You know, Mr. Henderson, I appreciate that perspective. I have spoken with quite a few families over the last couple of weeks. And one of the things that I've talked to them about is if kids were having a hard time staying focused in their remote learning, that also happens in an in-person class as well. And so when our kids are not able to stay as focused as we would like for them to do, in an in-person model, the student and or the parent would make a contact with the teacher and have a conversation to say, I'm sorry, my son, my daughter, my children are really struggling. Do you have some strategies? So would you recommend then that if we see families are seeing kids in a remote environment struggling, to reach out to their teachers in the same way they would do in an in-person model?
Oh, that's a perfect example, Dr. Forlis. I know that I spoke with my kindergarten teachers a couple of days ago, and they were just blown away by the parent support and connection that we have right now. And they talked of parent support being through the roof in ways that maybe we've never even seen before. And again, in a very difficult time, like we've said in the past, no one chose this, as we know that we want to get our kids back in seats whenever for the families that are ready for that. But some of the good that can come out of this as well is that relationship and that connection that can be made, and that communication. And I think we all know how important communication is in whatever setting that we're in, but especially in this educational setting, especially in the setting where we aren't able to be face to face, live, like in person, sitting in the same room together. But to use the technology that we have to be able to reach out, to ask those questions. If we see our students struggling, reach out to those teachers. They're there to help support. And we know that every child is different. Everyone learns at a different pace through different modalities. As teachers, we're trained, and as a school, we're trained to meet those needs of kids when they're in our setting. We do so many different ways to make that happen. And as we try to find those ways and make those connections in a remote setting, if you're struggling, if your students aren't connecting, let us know, let your teachers know, so that they can reach out to you and give you some of those strategies that might be a great way to help break that barrier, or break through sometimes that we might feel like our kids aren't connecting and engaging as well as we hope that they would.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I'm thinking about the amount of time. And so I've also talked to parents that are very concerned about the amount of screen time that children, especially their youngest learners, are engaged
Mm.
in. And when we unveiled our Safe, Strong, Ready plan to open up Mesa Public Schools on July 14th, we put out some schedules, some examples of a third grade schedule, an eighth grade schedule, an 11th grade student schedule. And what we're realizing now is that maybe we were a little ambitious for some kids. And so, can you talk a little bit about flexibility? Is there some flexibility now that we're in this and we've learned a lot over the last 2 weeks?
Absolutely. And I love that question, both as a dad and as a principal. I mean, I find myself often switching hats throughout the day as I look at it from the dad lens, and the number of hours that my own children are on the screen, from the work that they're doing at their schools, to other pieces like that. And I think about the students on our campus. How are they engaging? Are we making the most of the time that we have our students on? And so I want to say there definitely is flexibility. I know that on our campus, it's something that we work very closely with the teachers to, we try to scaffold the amount of time that we're asking our students to be on. As our younger learners, we know that having them on for long periods of time isn't always what's best for them. And so chunking our lessons, chunking our times to make sure that they have breaks, but we're also making sure that we're very intentional, that the time we do have with them is really important, to where they are learning the most that they can, to make sure that we're making those connections. And so definitely, again, goes back to that communication piece. If you're feeling like your child is on the screen too much and that you're struggling keeping up with some of these things, please communicate those things with your schools. Reach out to the teachers, reach out to those of that learning community, just to kind of have some of those conversations. And there's always ways that we can meet needs in different ways, and we can figure out how to. We always talk about here in Mesa, we want to know our students by strength, by need, by name. We know them in a way. As we have our young learners with us, we want to make sure that we're meeting those needs every single day. And if what's being asked of them right now maybe a little bit more than what they can handle, let's have those conversations, and let's be flexible within that, to make sure that we are meeting the needs of specific children, and not just an overall idea of how many hours we should or shouldn't be on, but instead meeting the needs of specific students.
Yeah, that sounds really great. And I'm gonna. There's a question that just came in, and I think I'll tackle this and then add on what you would like to add on, Mr. Henderson. The question is: it's tough to manage when kids don't have the concept of time. Are there any suggestions? And so when I think about when we say, well, this amount of time that you're going to be in a live lesson with your teacher, and this amount of time you're going to be working independently, oftentimes schedules are really, visual schedules for kids are really helpful. I know that many of our teachers are creating those, providing them to kids in a remote environment, and they check off as they are working through what's expected of them. Sometimes that helps. Do you have some other some suggestions around helping kids understand the concept of time?
Yeah, especially with our younger learners. And I know that I know here at my school, we set up schedules for each of our families. They know that when they log into Canvas, they immediately go to that schedule button, and that child can see their whole day right in front of them and everything that they're going to be engaging in. I know that my children's schedules are the exact same. They get to look at their schedule for the day. My wife has created a schedule for me so that if I reach out to them, if I'm down at work, I will know where my kids are. If you need to talk to Noah, he's in this meeting over here, and Sophie might be doing this over there. So it's one of those things that it is for children, that concept of time. To them, sometimes 5 minutes feels like 5 hours. And so I think sometimes setting timers for them as well, like, hey, let's work really hard on this for 5 minutes. Okay, I'm going to set this timer for 5 minutes. Let's see how many that you can get done during that time. I know that our teachers, they try to have very intentional lessons whenever we have them live with our students. So sometimes those meetings might need to be a 15 or a 20 minute, but also understanding that if you need a break, if you need to take a deep breath, if you need to get a drink of water, that's okay as well. But helping our children to come up with that concept of time, I think that the schedules help. I think timers help. I think that kind of chunking it, like, once you do this, once you finish your math and then you do a couple of questions here, then it's lunchtime. Or as soon as we finish this piece, now we get to go watch the PE video, and some of those pieces that we're able to build in that the kids look forward to, some of those other activities. So I think just communicating with them and helping them understand that as we process through a couple of pieces that are important from an educational standpoint, that they can see that once we get to this, we can almost, like you said, Dr. Forless, check that box off and then move on to the next piece from there.
You know, well, we have a question, and I think you just answered a bit of it, but I'd like to talk a little bit about this because I'm hearing this in my conversations with parents as well. And the question is, can we have a more consistent structure to the Canvas courses, same page layout and so on? So it sounds to me that at Lincoln Elementary School that there is some consistency about how kids they understand where to get their Canvas course, because that's also helpful to parents. You've got a kindergartner, a second grader, and a fourth grader. It's kind of nice to see how things are laid out. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I can't see the Facebook chat right now, but shout out to the parent that asked that question, because I am right there with you. As a parent, it's one thing to set up the Canvas class and to work with my staff to prepare what our schedules are going to look like and what our courses look like. But then I put the dad hat on and I go home and I sit with my kids and we look through their Canvas courses and we look at the work that they're working through. And so I understand some of the frustration that might come with that. I understand that things might look different from one child to the next. We worked really hard over here at Lincoln to make sure that all of our teachers are on the same page, that if a kindergarten student logs in, a third grade student or a sixth grade student, that all might be in the same family, they're all going to log into their teacher's classroom, and then from their classroom they're going to know to go straight to one spot, and from that spot they'll have their schedule, one click from the schedule, and then from the schedule they get to click into each of the pieces from there. I do know that the district has also given us some autonomy as schools to be able to set up our Canvas courses on our campuses in the way that best meet the needs of our families and our students. And I think that Dr. Forrest, and this kind of goes back to, and I'll be the first one to say that my wife being an educator, teaching at the same school that my kids go to, myself and my wife both reached out to my children's teachers immediately when we started looking at the way they had their schedule set up, the way they had their Canvas courses set up. It goes back to that communication piece of, hey, we might have set ours up as educators this way. Yours might look a little bit different. Can you help me understand kind of the best process for my children to get there? So, I mean, whether educators or a parent that's not, I mean, I encourage you to reach out to that teacher. And if you are struggling trying to figure out the process or the structure, or how do I get to this WebEx meeting here, or how do I engage in this Florida virtual lesson over there? I know that our teachers have worked really hard and put a lot of thought process into the way they've set up their Canvas courses. And so I would strongly suggest to reach out to that teacher and try to get some direction as to what's the best process for me to get from point A to point B to make sure that my kiddo is able to engage in that lesson whenever you're teaching it, or that Florida virtual piece that they need to take care of for that day.
You know, and that's a really good point. And I want to make sure that everybody understands that we have used Canvas as our learning management system in our secondary schools, but it is brand new to our elementary. teachers and our elementary families and to our elementary principals. So we're just, we started school about 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks and a day ago, and this is new. So it's really important that we give some opportunity for our teachers to acclimate, and they're learning from each other as well. Our teachers are set up in teams. They work in grade level teams and content teams. Principals have an opportunity, probably not as much as they would like, but they do have an opportunity to collaborate and to share some of those best practices. So I think I'm going to lean on Mr. Henderson to share some of these strategies around consistency of what Canvas looks like. When, as an example, he could share that with some other principals that might have some families that are struggling with that as well. So that's what this is, a great opportunity to be able to do this. So let's talk about a little bit about monitoring the work that's going on. So here's the question. Who monitors the quality of the teaching, and who can help those teachers who struggle with technology? What does that look like from a school leader perspective?
That's a great question, Andy. It's thankfully we have that connection to all of our teachers' Canvas sites. And so as an administrator, I have admin rights to everyone's Canvas sites. And so I typically spend my morning just dropping into their WebEx meetings, interacting with students, interacting with teachers, kind of spending a little bit of time. I mean, I think about whenever we're on campus, I try to walk through classrooms. It's always my first process in the morning is I want to see every child, every teacher within the first couple hours of the day. So I try to model that same experience here at the Canvas venue, to where I know that our teachers have a social and emotional lesson with their kids from 8:15 to 8:45. So I'm trying to be in there to see as many classrooms as I can every day, to do exactly what that question stated, Dr. Forlis, to make sure that we are connecting with our teachers, and making sure that they're feeling comfortable, that they're feeling competent, making sure that they feel supported, making sure that they have all of the links ready to go. I mean, and I think that you made a very good point when you mentioned that we're all learning through this process, and this is all new to elementary school teachers. And I have to say, I mean, they're doing a phenomenal job stepping up to the plate and doing amazing things within this system and this process. And so very, very proud of the work that we're doing, but definitely from lesson plans to dropping into meetings, from following up with families, checking in with different folks, making sure that the high quality education that we expect whenever students are on campus, that they're still getting that same high quality education and connections that they would be getting here in this remote setting as well.
And I really appreciate that. This is really, I want to applaud. We celebrate our teachers, and rightfully so. They deserve it. They have been working so hard, but so have our principals, to be thinking about our principals who are learning how to do coaching of their teachers and observation of their teachers, evaluation of their teachers in a remote environment. You're learning a lot. I mean, things that at this time last year, you would have thought we were crazy to be talking about this. So again, hats off to our administrators who are doing amazing work. So I'm going to drill down a little bit back to that question, Mr. Henderson, and talk about this specifically, this portion around, so how can we help teachers who are struggling with technology? Can you talk about our instructional technology support that's available at your campus?
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that we have multiple layers built on campus, from myself to my dean of students to my Title I specialist. But I mean, the district has so many great resources and folks that we reach out to. We have direct instructional, like ed tech folks that we reach out to. Our IT people are always ready and available. So we are getting trainings from them. We're also reaching out to them to help us problem solve some things that might be going on. They do a great job of sharing out articles or ideas or things that we might want to think about or try. Some of those pieces as well. So we feel very blessed to be here in Mesa Public Schools and to have such a large support system of very specifically trained people that not only understand technology at a higher level, but also understand education and the importance of high quality engagement and lessons that we're putting out for our students too. So that's a piece that I've been very proud of, and being able to problem solve and to work through some of these as it's new to all of our elementary teachers, to really make sure that we're putting out the best product that we can for our Mesa Public Schools kiddos.
Thank you so much. I know that our instructional technology team is working overtime as well to make sure not only that everything is working, but that it's beneficial and that it is supporting learning. Here's a question that we have, Josh. it would help to have the syllabus early so that we can prep the materials is the comment. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that. But in our plan, one of the expectations is that families receive a schedule for their student at the end of the week for the following week. And so that way there could be some planning that goes on. And when we think about our youngest learners, I understand that the curriculum has some prep work that needs to go along. There's some printed materials where kids have to build and make, and that is what we call developmentally appropriate. And so we want to make sure they have the opportunity to do that. So can you talk about schedules and when those are available from your perspective?
Yes, absolutely. And we kind of teacher by teacher, depending on our families, some of our families have asked that we leave our previous schedule up for the weekend, just in case they may not have gotten through everything that they wanted to. So my teachers have worked really hard to make sure that the previous week's schedule is available throughout the weekend while also uploading the schedule for the next week. It is true that within Florida Virtual, there are pieces that need to be printed and some activities that there could be some prep work that go along with that. We've tried to be very intentional over here at Lincoln and trying to take those and create text boxes within those so that we remove the need for a printer and some of the things that are going on paper pencil that we can also turn into a digital setting, but also have those prepared for the families that need that hard copy or may not have access to a printer. But yes, Dr. Forlis, I think having that uploaded as early as we can. I know sometimes my teachers try to get it up by Friday if they can, and if not by Sunday afternoon at the latest, so that our families are able to log in, look at the schedule, kind of mess with the links, check to make sure everything works, and then also pull up the materials. And again, as a dad, as a father, I'm doing those same things on Sunday afternoon to make sure that my kiddos are ready to rock and roll on Monday morning as well.
Yeah, definitely. Again, our appreciation to families for getting together to make this work in the best way possible. And so when we think about, I'm going to go back to technology for a minute. We've got a question here. We struggle with the text to speech and it frustrates my child. So for some of our youngest learners, that text to speech feature can be really helpful. And then again, that is something to reach out to the teacher to be able to say, we're struggling with this. Can we get some help? Many of you have reached out on our I Need Help button, that big red button on every school webpage, to say, this is what you need help with. Our goal is to get to you as quickly as possible. And if you find that the lag time is more than you would like, again, reaching out to the teacher to be able to help if he or she is available to do that. If not, that family, we also have family support networks that we have designed. And so that's another opportunity. We've tried to layer some support, knowing that this is a radical departure from the way that we've educated our youngest children. So please use every one of those methods to reach out and say, I need help with this.
Yeah, I second that, Dr. Forlis. That's really important to get back to that school website. Your school website has, I think every one of them has the buttons right below their main picture, and click on those buttons and send those questions, and we'll have people that are if they don't know the answers, they'll go out and try to find the answer for you, connect you to the person that can get you that answer.
Yes, and following along with technology, here's another question. Can the lessons, those live lessons that teachers are doing, can those be recorded? Because that's really helpful for families that they're not always available right there with their child at that time and they need to go back to it. Either they're working, they're attending to the needs of their other children. So there is the capability in WebEx for teachers to record those lessons so that you can review them later. Can you talk about some experience with that?
Yeah, we have some families that I've had direct contact with that use that on a daily basis. It's, hey, Mr. Henderson, we work during the school hours, or there's no one home to really help our child get on and to help walk them through the steps that are necessary. So it's something that we really taken to heart over here at Lincoln, and the importance of it was something that we really worked a lot on in PD and conversations that we had is let's make sure that we record all of our lessons. And then at the end of the day, we're adding a link at the end of that day where they can go back and watch any of those live lessons too. And so it's definitely a capability, it's definitely a function. I mean, again, I hate to be redundant, but going back to that communication with the teachers, and if it's something that it takes time for things to become a habit as well. I know I've had teachers email me at like 7 o'clock at night, Mr. Anderson, I totally forgot to record my live lesson today. I'm so sorry. And so I know that it's not always perfect as they get into the middle of things and they're trying to engage all of their students in the remote setting. but I do know that it is something that's possible and something that I know that many of our teachers in our schools across the district, I think it's something that's very important to them. And so if you're not seeing that link, or if you're not seeing that there are recorded lessons, I hope that you'll reach out to your teacher and encourage them to get that up there so that we can meet those needs of all of our families that aren't able to log in during the typical school hours.
Thank you. And there's a comment coming through that says that my child's teacher doesn't record, doesn't post schedules. Oh my gosh, what should I do? The first step is to reach out to the principal and to say, I think this teacher needs help. I need help as a parent, and the teacher appears that they might need some support and some help to be able to understand either how to do it or that it is an expectation. So principals expect to have those kinds of phone calls, and they're great at solving those problems. So please, please, please reach out to your principal. There's another, I'm going to talk a little bit about help with preschoolers and kindergartners who aren't yet reading, and if they need some directions, and how do we help them facilitate that? What are some of the things that you're seeing that's working at Lincoln?
So we have both preschool and kindergarten on our campus, obviously the kindergartners. And so it's one of those things that, again, I just celebrate our families and our parents and those who are sitting with our children. I mean, you guys are truly heroes. So thank you so much for that. I see how our teachers try to engage our students in live lessons as much as possible, because at that point in time, they can share their screen and they can project a book that they can read to the students while the students also see the words. Or I know my whole kindergarten team set up document cameras into their computers, and so they're able to put something under the document camera and project that for our youngest learners to be able to see and to be able to read right along with them, to put little bears down and count the bears together, to be able to put a book underneath, to be able to project a story. I know that, again, we talked a little bit about the text to speech piece as well. I know that a lot of the Florida Virtual has it built in where it will read it to the students as well. Once we worked a lot in our kindergarten and our preschool with teaching and teaching our families and our students how to use those components of Florida Virtual to, if they aren't able to read the text, if they click on a button, then it'll read that text to them. And it's great for our kids to see the words and start recognizing the words as they're being read to them. Even when they're working in maybe an asynchronous environment where they're not engaged one-on-one or in a small group with the teacher at that time. So I know that our reading lab has gotten up and running over here at Lincoln, and we're doing sight words, and we're trying to assess where our youngest learners are and what skills they have with letter naming and letter sounds, and moving into some of the reading pieces as well. So it's I can see the difficulty. I know that it takes oftentimes an adult right there with them to help work through some of these things, but I also encourage them to get more familiar with some of the text to speech functions and some of the other things that we have built in that can help guide our students through some of those pieces as well.
So as I'm looking through the questions, there's some, we've got time for about two more, we've got three questions I think we need to answer. Okay. One of those is, are there resources for non-English speaking parents?
Yes, absolutely. And as the principal of Lincoln, where many of our families have that they have a need for some support in that area, our family support specialist is phenomenal with that. And so our families are able to reach out to the front office if they're not sure how to get to her. One of our buttons, she is our family support liaison. One of the buttons on our website goes straight to her as well. So we always want to know that we always want our families to know that if there is a language barrier, we want to remove that. We don't want that to hinder the learning of their students. And so whether we have classified staff members that are also bilingual, that we can buddy them up in small groups to be able to help support our students. A lot of the ELD teaching and learning that's going on in the classroom, also to support our English language learners. It's a big piece of what we do over here at Lincoln. And it's also a big piece of what I know that we do across the district here in Mesa Public Schools, is to ensure that we have Spanish speakers on campus that can help remove that language barrier so that we're meeting the needs of all students.
Yeah, so please reach out. We have resources to be able to support that. So thank you for giving that school level perspective. So So I'm going to talk a little bit about this question is around the on-site support centers, because you as well, not only are you leading a school of remote learners, but you're also working with your on-site support center, which is an opportunity for children who have registered to come in and spend time with support from a support staff member, not a teacher, but a support staff member to help to access. And the question was that it looks like this child, the parent is saying, gosh, 6 hours is a long time for kids to sit. Is there a way to get them up and to get them moving? What are you finding about how you're making the on-site support center at Lincoln work?
Dr. Forlis, I wish I could show my phone right now of a Lincoln student that is in our on-site support center. And he did PE right there with the PE teacher, right there in our on-site learning center. To the student who's in band, who we found a spot adjacent to the work that we were doing for them to engage in their orchestra and their band. To the music students that are clapping and tapping right along with the music teachers in our on-site learning centers. To the breaks where they all know how to wash their hands and take their mask off and put it in the bag, and the walks that they take, the path that they follow around campus to enjoy some fresh air and to be able to move around. To the lunch breaks that we have where the kids are able to kind of close everything down for a little bit and enjoy their lunch and maybe draw a picture or color. The families that have been coming have been phenomenal with sending a book or coloring books or things that their kids enjoy doing so that they can close that screen and not have screen time for a little bit. And I've been so amazed by those that are supporting our on-site learning center and how supportive and caring, compassionate and helpful, innovative, thoughtful that they've been with these students that are showing up and that are getting additional support, getting logged in, finding their schedules, helping them access their learning, but also giving them opportunities to do other things besides just sit there and stare at the computer screen all day.
Well, thank you so much. And it's a couple minutes past 4:30, but these have been a great conversation based on really good questions. And so I think as I summarize our conversation here today, Mr. Henderson, it's really about communication and about flexibility. And so questions are going to come up. Please, parents and those who support our kids, please reach out to your teacher, reach out to the principal. We are looking for good ways to be able to adapt within this very new environment in which we are living and learning and working and playing within. So please reach out and know that our very best effort went into developing remote learning. But as we go through it, we are learning that there are better strategies and that we are needing to be flexible for individual children, just like we would be doing in an in-person model. So please don't feel like you're bothering your teacher. Please don't feel like you're bothering your principal. Reach out. They want to solve the problem before it becomes a bigger problem. So I would like to say thank you, Mr. Henderson. Thank you to you. I appreciate you being here and spending time with us to be able to talk about what's happening at Lincoln. You represent so many voices and so many perspectives. It's just really appreciated. And to our families, again, thank you. We know that this is a challenge. And again, we believe that this is going to, that we are going to have a solution. We're going to get those positivity rates down, and we're going to get our kids back in school as soon as we believe that they are the safest to return to a classroom where they learn best. So thank you for your time. Mr. Henderson, thank you again. Behind the scenes to our tech crew, thank you. Have a wonderful evening with your families. Bye-bye.
Bye.